Om Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwara Guru Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Ajnana Timirandhasya Jnana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Tumeva Mada Cha Pita Tumeva Bandhuscha Sakha Tumeva Vidyadravinaṁ Tumeva Sarvam Amriteshwari Maha Tumeva Sarvam Amriteshwari Maha Tumeva Sarvam Amriteshwari Maha. Om Amriteshwari Namaha. We'll begin with a short meditation. Kindly sit straight and make sure your spinal column, your vertebral column is erect. And make sure you're sitting in a comfortable posture without any pain in your body. And slowly close your eyes. Now, gather your mind, focusing on your breath. Breathing normally, but with full awareness of each and every inhalation and exhalation that occurs through your body. Keep observing your breath. And let's chant Om 3 times now. And as you chant it, Om, imagine the sound of Om to arise not from your throat, but from your navel area. And visualize the sound both internally and externally, all around you and within you. Okay, take a deep breath. Once again, continue to watch your breath. And now, if you may chant Ma when you breathe in and Om when you breathe out, feeling the energy of Ma and Om within you, and continue your meditation just for a few more minutes. Slowly and slowly feel the subtle energy of Amma and Om, and visualize your mind to expand, become vast as the sky, and enjoying limitless freedom, both the love and light of Ma and Om, taking you up towards the heights of bliss. Now we'll end the meditation by chanting Loka Samasta Sugino Bhavantu 3 times. Om Loka Samasta Sugino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sugino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sugino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Om Dhyayamo Dhavalabhakunthanavatim Tejomayim Nashtikim Snigdha Pangavilokinim Bhagavatim Mandasmidashrimukim Valsalyamritavarshinim Sumadhuram Sankirtanalapinim Shamangim Madhusakta Suktim Amritanandatmigam Ishwarim Om Sadashivasamarambham Shankaracharya Asmadacharya-paryandam Vande Guru Parambaram Srude Smriti Purananam Alayam Garunalayam Namami Bhagavat-padam Shankaram Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutrabhashakau Vande Bhagavandau Punah Punaha Ishwarau Gururagmedi Murti Bheda Vibhagini Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaya Lakshana Murtaye Namaha Om Amriteshwariyai Namah Om Amriteshwariyai Namah Om Amriteshwariyai Namah. My humble prostrations to all of you. And we have been studying this Purana, which is known as the Srimad Bhagavadam. And we have been a little bit way advanced, but I'm just, because so many people are joining now, I'm just going to start with the little bit of the introduction, and then further, maybe the next class or so, we'll catch up. As soon as we catch up, then I can come up to that where we were earlier. But since it also has been a long time for all of you, you might also need a refresh, right? And you need to remember things and you have to understand. So let's start with the Srimad Bhagavatam, who's authored by Veda Vyasa. And so Veda Vyasa wrote this, but the very story of how Veda Vyasa wrote it itself is coming in Srimad Bhagavatam later on. As we look at it, it'll come there. But just wanted to give you a brief introduction as to where it is happening. It is happening in a place called Naimisharanya. And in Naimisharanya, all the sages are gathered together and they do uh, hold on just a minute. Is it up? Oh, okay. No. Is this better? No. Okay. Is it better? Is it better? Okay. So, Veda Vyasa, the author of Srimad Bhagavatam, uh, he's the one who wrote this. And as I said, the the story of how Sri Vyasa wrote this will come later on in Srimad Bhagavatam itself. And you might also see Veda Vyasa as the also one of the characters in the story. So that is the beauty about it. And it's the Ramayana month. So I just wanted to say something, which we want to say something that when in the Ramayana uh, it's about Lord Rama. So, and Lord Rama's actually two children are coming to his court, Lava and Kush. And so what happened is they are coming to the court chanting Ramayana itself. So what happens is, so as some of you may ask this question, so did it really, was it already, uh, a drama which is being enacted again? And is it, in one sense, has it been already been in pre-planned? And how would you see that? Because the author himself is coming in and coming out, and also you can see the characters are being mixed, and it's also in one sense, as I said, Vyasa, who used to, in once, if you think about it, he used to live before that. And Vyasa is also the author of all the Vedas. And he wrote all the Vedas and the 18 Puranas. And after that, what happened was, after that he wrote Srimad Bhagavatam. So, in one sense, we can say that if we look at it from that sense, he already intuited this, and it was intuition. And just like the where Sanjaya was in Mahabharata. Sanjaya was seeing all these things happening and was telling Dhritarashtra what about the war. In one sense, we can say that Lord Vyasa had already seen this, and he's also a character. So it creates confusion in our mind, and they purposely want to create that confusion because they want you to not just enjoy, and they want you to think about it. So suddenly you might ask, oh, Vyasa appeared in the time of Lord Krishna, right, in the Mahabharata war, and then later on, we can see that Vyasa was much earlier also. We had come much earlier, where he had in the Mahabharata, where he had created all the children for the both the Pandavas and the Kauravas, and he gave the boon to them. So how, when you take from a level of ordinary logic, it doesn't make sense. So here the purpose is also to just understand that, to defeat the logical mind. So don't use your logical mind and think about what is correct and what is wrong. It may be correct, it may be wrong, but the basic purpose of this is to propagate the spiritual principles. So what is the spiritual? What are the spiritual principles in Srimad Bhagavatam? And there is, as we come to the story, we can see that. We can come to the story later on, but I'll just give you just a preview. When, as I said, what happened was Lord Vyasa, Sage Vyasa, wrote all the 18, all the Vedas plus the 18 Puranas, and still he was not satisfied. And then he was sitting there when Narada Maharshi came and asked him to, what is the reason of his sadness. So then Vyasa explained to him, and Vyasa said, "This is the reason I am sad. I don't feel complete even after writing all these things." So what happened was, the other problem was also that when he wrote all these things, when he wrote all the Puranas, first he wrote the Mahabharata, and so when he wrote the Mahabharata, he thought, what happened is, in those times, ladies or women were not allowed to chant Vedas. So what happened was, don't ask me why they were not allowed to chant Vedas, and don't please fight with me. I'm not the person who ordained that, but uh, um, not only ladies, but there were some only Brahmins were allowed. So why were Brahmins allowed? So that is another question. So let's not go there. I don't want to discuss that right now. But what I wanted to say was, when after writing this, the ladies could not chant the Vedas, which is the essence of the Vedas are the Upanishads, and which the Aham Brahmasmi, all the four Tattvamasi, all the four principles stand there. So they were not able to read it. And then when the Puranas came, then they said, oh, Mahabharata there is so much of war, bloodshed. So if you keep the Puranas, if you keep that book in your house, you're going to have always, uh, fighting also in your house. So don't keep that book. So then don't keep this book, don't keep the other book. And finally, they threw out everything out of the house. So the other problem was also in the Mahabharata, as they said, Lord Vyasa has said everything. Whatever could happen in this world, and whatever had happened, and whatever will happen, and how a character can be good and then become bad, and also how a character can be so good, so bad, and become good, and all these things. And dharma, when you talk about dharma, the principles of dharma, elaborated dharma so much. And but what happened was, as they say, when you know too much, you're so uh, kind of nervous to practice dharma, because you don't know what is right and what is wrong. And the other thing is also, what happens is, if you know too much of dharma, then what happens is, whatever I do, is that correct? So there is a doubt in your mind. So what he did was, he when he incorporated all these things into the Mahabharata, nobody read it. So what was the use? So, and people could not practice dharma. So what he did, what he said was about Lord Narada. When Lord Narada came, which we will discuss later, when Lord Narada came, what Lord Narada said was that, when you think about this, all these things have gone by. And so you should write a book on the glory of the Lord, where people, the mind of the people will always revel in the Lord itself, or in the stories of the Lord. See, for example, I'll tell you this example. When we hear a satsang, right? When we hear a satsang, how much of the spiritual principles or the spirituality that they are talking will stay in our mind? Zero, right? But when they talk about the experience they had with Amma, so what happens? That we all remember. And if you if you think about the last satsang Amma gave, you know, so do you remember all those satsangs? But if I tell you, the stories which Amma said, oh, you'll suddenly say, yes, definitely, I remember those stories. So the problem here is, it's not about storytelling only, but through the stories, you have to bring out the spiritual, essential spiritual principles. And so this is what Sage Narada told Vyasa. So Sage Narada also said, if you keep talking about dharma, and if you talk about how to live in this world, how to do this, do that, dharma also keeps changing according to situations, right? And you do not know what is correct dharma. So you get confused more. So what you do is, you just ask them always to think about and remember God. And when you remember God, your mind is always dwelling in a better place, and in a satwik bhava, in a pure mind. The mind will be more pure. And naturally, as the mind is pure, then what happens? Your actions will also be, your thoughts will be pure, so your actions will also be pure. So you don't have to worry about dharma and adharma in that sense, because you're always thinking what is right only, and you won't make a mistake. So Lord Narada suggested to Vyasa, see, instead of writing all these things, what you have written in Mahabharata, you just write about the stories of the Lord only. And when you hear the stories, your mind is naturally going to be there. And the mind is not going to down. Just like Mahabharata, you are thinking about, or in Ramayana, why did Lord Rama send Sita to the forest? Or why did he do like this? Why did he kill the demon standing behind the tree? And you have 1,000 questions. But if you just think about the stories of Lord Krishna and the devotees and his devotees, then what happens is, you're just remembering those, and your mind is reveling only on those things. So you don't worry about logic. So that's the first thing. So take your logic and put it inside your pocket and be done with it, and don't bring it out. That is the first message. Because as I said, what they do is they bring a story within a story. So you get confused as to who's the characters, who's the what is happening here, and how it is happening. So don't worry about all these things. Just listen to the story and be. They want you to be in the present moment. They don't have to. You don't have to worry about, oh, what happened to this character, that character, and the continuity will be lost many places. So don't look for the continuity. Just understand that this story will always continue, and it will totally be illogical. So don't ask such questions. So they want your intellect to be shut down, so don't bring out your intellect. So they want your hearts to be open rather than the intellect, and thinking about what is correct and what is wrong. So uh, that is why they are purposely doing a story within a story within a story. And finally, you are so confused that you have to just surrender completely and be in the moment. So as I said earlier, the other thing is also, when one knows what is one's dharma, and one wants to attain realization, right? And realization is not going to come so easily. And it has to come, I mean, it will come eventually. But you have to keep working hard. And so you cannot become lazy, right? So what happens is, if you become lazy, that also, laziness will also bring your mind down. So what do? If you do too much of action oriented work also, then what happens? It produces so much of rajas, or the action inside your mind also. So what you have to do is, you have to do satwik activities which are helpful to keep your mind in a in a state where it always rebels, in a pure state. Satwik is, in one sense, you can say, in a pure state. So what you do is, so you keep on doing the good actions. So in rajas, what happens? In tamas, what happens? Tamas, you are always sleeping, or you're doing some tamasic actions which will harm other people, right? Or it will not be uh, for the good of the people or the society. And whereas in rajas, what happens is, the mind is action oriented. So even in action oriented, sometimes you can do actions which are harmful to others. And this as you can see, most of the actions that you do in such a state produces ill effects rather than good effects. And it will not benefit the society. So if the actions have to benefit the society, your mind has to be sattvic, pure, dwelling in the sattvic qualities. So what do you do for that? So that's why they have been in the Naimisharanya. This is known as a Naimisharanya, where all the sages gather. They have been constantly doing homa, pujas, and doing spiritual practices. So, you might ask this question, all these sages realized, or why are they doing that? That's why I'm explaining to you. Some of them have already been realized, but some of them are striving for realization. So what happens is, they are just doing sattvic actions, which will ultimately take them to realization. So that's why in Bhagavad Gita also, Lord Krishna says, right? You spend most of your time in tamasic actions and rajasic actions. Like as a about when you think about it, 50% of your life is gone sleeping. Well, let's say about 40%, right? 40, say if you take 100 years, out of 100 years, 40 years you sleep. At least, like suppose 8 hours a day, and some people sleep more than that. So 40 to 50% is spent on sleeping. Then when you wake up, then what happens? Then you are looking for food, or you are working for food. So another about 30 to 40% is spent like that. And then another 5 to 10% you are spending for other activities. And then how much do you have for spiritual practices? Maybe 5% or 2%. So that's why they say that when you the also the other advantage of doing the spiritual practices is, when you do spiritual practices, you need to sleep less, right? And you need to eat less. And then you're not worried so much about finding food and all these things. And like as Amma says, when we chant the Lalita Sahasranama, we do not worry about three things: food, shelter, and clothing. It will come to you automatically, so you don't worry about it. And as you keep chanting, these three things will come to you. And what you do is just concentrate on your spiritual practices. So this is what the sages were doing in Naimisharanya. They were constantly doing homas, and they were doing pujas and all these things, and doing their spiritual practices in Naimisharanya. And this is actually but coming to that, before I come to that, as I said, sage Veda Vyasa, after he wrote the four Vedas, he gave he had four disciples, and he imparted this Vedas, four Vedas: Rig Veda to sage uh, Paila, and then Yajurveda to sage Jaimini, and Samaveda to sage Vaishampayana, and Atharva Veda to sage Sumantu. So he gave it all these four Vedas to his four disciples to spread it in different parts of the world. And then after he wrote Srimad Bhagavatam, he was thinking as to whom he should give it to, right? So what happened was, as he was thinking, one of the things he said was, what is the qualification to hear Bhagavata? You need not need not have PhD. You need not be learned in Rig Veda, Samaveda, Yajurveda. You need not know mantras. You need not know even the basic spiritual principles. What do you need? You need first of all, you need a mind, right, which will listen to this and sit and listen to this. That is number one. And number two, what happens when you listen to the stories? If you go to sleep, then is there any use? So if it should not go to sleep. So it should not be tamasic. And then the second thing, when you hear about these stories, or they said they did something this to Krishna, and or that to Krishna, or like when you get so immersed in the stories, and then when Krishna beats the Rakshasas and kills them. So suppose, and you become identified with Lord Krishna, then you take a stick and start beating people that is close to you. That is also not good, right? So what you need is a pure heart, first of all, and a person who has a pure heart. And not only that, when he hears these stories, so what happens to a devotee when they hear the stories? When we hear stories of Amma, or the experiences of other devotees, what happens to us? Yeah, the heart melts. And as the result of the heart melting, then what happens? Yeah, we start start having tears. So the qualification for that disciple, as decided by Lord Vyasa, was somebody who should have that kind of that when he hears that story, his hairs should stand up. So there was a disciple like that, who's Roma Harshana. So which means his Roma means his hairs were standing. when he heard the stories. So what happened was, so he gave this Srimad Bhagavatam to the sage Romaharshana. And then what happened was Romaharshana taught this to his son and to his sage, and who was another sage called Sutta. And Sutta is the one who is narrating this. So don't worry about it. Don't worry. I'm just giving you the background. So don't worry. You don't have to remember the names, as I said. Remember only what the qualities. So because what is the quality to listen to? Is it your connection? Can somebody else check it? No, my connection is there. Yeah, it's back. Okay, it's back now. It's working. Okay, working again. So I just wanted to say, repeat that. So as I said, what happened was Sage Sutta is sitting, and so when these sages, the other uh, sages who are performing, the other sages are including Shaunaka, that is one of the sages who are performing this uh, pujas and homas in their spare time. What will we do? We'll just try to go and sleep or do something like that. But in their spare time, what they do was they wanted to come and listen to the stories of and the glories of the Lord, the stories which propagate the glories. So that's why. So Shaunaka and the other rishis, what happened was, uh, what they do is they come to Sutta, Sage Sutta, who's sitting there, and they are saying uh, that he's saying that to us who are desirous of hearing you, please narrate the story of his descent as the God incarnate, which must have been meant for bringing eternal bliss and worldly welfare to all of us. And he's saying that by resorting to his name, be it in even a mood of distress and helplessness, one entangled in the cycle of births and deaths would only get release at once, for even the God of death is afraid of him. So they just go on. So one of the things is with Srimad Bhagavatam, wanted to tell you here is that whenever and wherever there is a possibility to glorify either the values or either to glorify bhakti or devotion or any of the values or to glorify God, suddenly they will just come up with so much praises and glories. And in those glories, actually what happens is, there is so much principles embedded into these glories. So that's why it is so essential to understand this also. So when they talk about bhakti, they also talking about how to get it. So here, that's why they are saying that even death is afraid of him. Why? Because if you chant the name, it's not that it's not, your body is not going to die, correct? The death of your body is there. So the body will perish no matter what happens. That is the only guarantee that we have. But what does it mean when we say that he will not, death of God of death is afraid? So it means that when we chant the names of or the mantra that has been given to us by Amma, or the names, or that's why Amma gives us the mantras. So we go beyond the feeling that we are merely the body. It takes us to, it transcends us to the place where we understand that we are not just the body or the mind. So when the mind stops, then what happens? Then we start enjoying peace also. So that is the other advantage of having this chanting. So it's not only that, and eventually it will take us to the place where we understand that we are not the mind, we are not the body, or not the intellect and the thoughts that come in our mind. So what happens is, that's how we go across death. So that's why they are saying even the god of death is afraid. So he's saying that also narrate to us with who are full of faith. His see, that's other thing. So one of the qualities they are saying, should have faith in these things. And so if you do not have faith, then there is no point in listening to these stories. Correct? So what happened is, if you it's faith means, of course, in as I said, basically it is the faith in the words of the scriptures and the guru. So when you say the scriptures, you can say that this is not a scripture, this is only a Purana. Correct? So how do you have faith in this Purana? So that is the essential thing also we have to understand here. Even though the Purana is full of stories, and stories which may be made up, which may have happened also, but as I said earlier, you have to look at the essential spiritual principles which are hidden here. So don't don't dwell on the stories, and ask this question, like, how did Lord Krishna dance on Kaliya, the great serpent? And if you think about it, it doesn't make sense, right? But what is Kaliya? You know how many fangs he had? Heads. Yeah, he had 5 heads. So 5 heads means, which is a representation of 5 senses. So when Krishna dances on this Kaliya, I mean, if you think about it, what comes out of these 5 senses? Poison. So anything good comes out of this? No. So so that's why it is said to control the senses, because if we control the senses, then what we do is we go beyond the poison to the nectar. So that's why when we talk about Lord Krishna dancing, so you have to look at the allegory behind it and the spiritual principle. So when you think about it, then you will get it slowly and slowly. Oh, that's what they are talking about. It's not about Lord Krishna dancing on a snake. So the mind is like a snake, isn't it? The mind can attack you anytime without your knowledge. So it can bite you. And what if it bites you? It's full of poison that's coming out. There's nothing useful coming out. So, but what happens is, there is, that's the other thing. There is nectar. When we go beyond the mind, when we churn the mind, when we stop the mind, that is what is shown by the churning of the Milky Ocean. So when we think about all these principles, spiritual principles, and the stories, in which these spiritual principles are hidden, then we will understand that these the stories are nothing but to illustrate all these spiritual principles, and for us to remember. And especially, as I said earlier, in the Puranas, and in also the Srimad Bhagavatam, they're talking about stories of the Lord only. So your mind, as I said, your mind is dwelling and reveling only in that plane. And it's not talking stories about who, somebody did something bad to this person. And so it's not like a watching a um, you know what do you call it, television soap opera. And so what happens, it's not even close to it, but there are so many soap operas in this itself, but you can see that. But it's actually, all these things are also elevating in that sense. And so he's saying that, as coming back to the point, which is faith. So if you think about faith, and if you think about this question that, like, look, you talked about faith in the scriptures, and there is nothing much about scriptures, or the stories are completely illogical. And if you think like that, then you're not going to get it. You have to understand, if you just, as I said earlier, you just have to listen to it and look within the stories. And so he said, and he's saying that what happens is, the other thing is also, he's saying that the Kali, the age of Kali has started. So we will come to that story later, where, in this one, where the age of Kali is starting, and how it started, and all these things. And so after the death of Lord Krishna, that's when the Kali started. And in the Kali Yuga, as you know, there are 4 yugas. This is Krita, Treta, Dwapara, and Kali, the 4 yugas. And what is the speciality of Kali Yuga? In the Kali Yuga, what happens is the mind is always drawn and into the worldly sensual pleasures. And people will be always indulging in sensual pleasures. And what happens is, as a result of which, they would not even have time to think about spiritual principles, of listens to the stories of God. And all the mind will be so gross that the mind will be dwelling only in these subjects, worldly matters. So that's why he's saying that in the age of Kali, one of the most important things is to listen to such stories, so that the mind is not being dragged into the world. So he's saying that, about talking about Lord Krishna, and he's saying that, please answer, where did spirituality gain support when Sri Krishna, the Lord of all yogas, the lover of holy man, and the protector of spirituality, finished his earthly play and assumed his eternal abode. So what happens is, where Srimad Bhagavatam starts is towards the end of Mahabharata, where the war is over, and after the war is over, that's and when everybody is gathered together, that's where Bhagavatam starts. So I'll come to the stories later, but he's saying that in when Sutta is asked this question uh, by the sages, and he's replying to them, "O sages, the questions you have put are both relevant and important. And for relating as they do to the Supreme Being Sri Krishna, when you say Sri Krishna, you have to understand, you replace Sri Krishna with Brahman, or consciousness. And it's not about, they're not talking about just the deity, the Lord. They're talking about the supreme consciousness, supreme the Brahman. So just a name for that is Krishna. And in Treta Yuga, the name was Rama. So don't get confused by that. And in the Kali Yuga, that is there were different avatars. So it is the same incarnation of this same power. So don't get confused by saying that when that oh, Sri Krishna, we are talking about Sri Krishna only. And that is where the dogma comes. When you think about just Lord Krishna only. So people, if we do not understand this, we'll say, oh, Lord Krishna is the highest of all the deities. And Lord Krishna, beat everybody. He beat them into pulp and he killed all the demons and he's such a great person. And what did Lord Rama do? Rama also killed a lot of demons and did so many other things. So when you think about all these different incarnations, and when they talk about Sri Krishna, they're talking about the supreme consciousness. So if we look at the plurality of these incarnations, we'll get confused. And that's why there is so much of confusion in when we listen to the Indian, the Puranas. And when in the Puranas, what happens is when you read Devi Purana, Devi is the highest. And she's even higher than Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. So Krishna is an incarnation of Vishnu, right? And so then you will say, how is Devi higher than Vishnu? My Krishna is bigger than Devi. So then they start fighting. Or my Shiva is, greater than your Krishna. And luckily, they don't worship Brahma that much. So that is one good thing. So what happens is, so then the fight starts and thinking because they don't understand the essential principles. So when we talk about Lord Krishna, we are talking about the supreme consciousness only. So the questions he's saying you have put forth is relevant and important. And the supreme being, that's what you have to understand. Supreme being is who has come as Sri Krishna. And if he's saying the highest duty of man consists in doing that which generates devotion to the supreme being, devotion which is motiveless, which is unyielding to on any obstacle, which fills the heart of man with peace after erasing all the body based instincts and tendencies. So what kind of stories and what kind of devotion do you have, should you have, is what being enunciated here. Is giving, number one, you can have bhakti to so many things, right? If you hear the success story of, say, Bill Gates, that's also devotion. Then what happens? You get devoted to money, right? And suppose you hear the success story of Einstein. Then what happens? After reading that, then you'll hear, oh, I want to become a great scientist. Or you hear this success story of a great football player, you want to become a football player. But here, that's what he is saying. Bhakti means to the supreme being. And also, the second one is, it is motiveless. You are not listening to these stories with a motive. Say, for example, like in India, they say, oh, if you listen to Srimad Bhagavadam, your daughter will get married. Or, you will get rid of your, all your health problems. Or they will say, all your enemies will be killed. All your enemies will die. So they're saying, listen, that's not the point. The point is you should not have any motive while listening to this story. And what will it bring? That is the essential. It will bring peace of mind after erasing all the body-based instincts and tendencies. So that is the ultimate result of listening to these stories. So that should be the motive. They're saying, and then it will create that bhakti, the devotion, which will not be, which will not be dependent on anything. And it will not, you will not say that, oh, I'm listening to Bhagavadam so that I can get this job. Or I'm listening to this Bhagavadam, the story, because I'm going to have something, or I'm getting more money, or my daughter will get married or son will get married, and so also and so on. So that is not the point. So that's what he is saying. So when you listen to these stories, what happens is, he says that it will erase all this the sensual activities which is in your mind, which comes up in your mind, which is karma. That's the say that. Uh, so what is uh, the other things, all the uh, sensual pleasures and all these things that will all get annihilated. So that is what he's saying. So as a result of which, so when you say that, when you uh, when you kill all these things, when you take away all the negativities, what remains is the peace of mind. So the mind is not going behind or going after all these things. So, and what happens is, as I said, the other thing is also slowly, uh, when you listen to these stories, as they are slowly injecting, as there's a saying um, in Malayalam, it's like putting pricking a banana with a needle slowly. It goes so smoothly, right? The needle goes in very smoothly. And it's like that. What they are doing is they are also giving you the spiritual principles which are enunciated in the Vedas, in the Upanishads, through this. And as a result of which, you are also receiving those principles. It's not merely stories. So it just going, even without your own knowledge, or your intellectual guard saying that, oh, I will listen only to this, I won't listen to that. It's going into your heart. And as a result of which, these the knowledge of the Upanishads and the Vedas are also will be illumined through these stories. So let's stop here for the time being, and we'll continue in the next class on next Tuesday. ഇത് അല്ല മാറ്റിയോ, ചാനൽ മാറ്റിയോ? So we'll sing a couple of bhajans now. Give me a bhajan book, one bhajan book, 3 volume 3. Keep tapping. No, sorry. What happened to that? Which one did you input that in? Just plug it in. It's not. It's 8. Huh? 15? No, put it in 8. Yeah. Okay. Start. So volume 3, page 23. Amritamaye, Anandamaye, Amritanandamaye, Jai Ma, Jai Ma, Jai Ma, Jai Ma.
Amritamaye, Anandamaye, Amritanandamaye, Jai Ma, Jai Ma, Jai Ma, Jai Ma.
Amritamaye, Anandamaye, Amritanandamaye, Jai Ma, Jai Ma, Jai Ma, Jai Ma.
Amritamaye, Anandamaye, Amritanandamaye, Jai Ma, Jai Ma, Jai Ma, Jai Ma.
Vedamaye, Sudhamaye, Amritanandamaye, Amba Sri Guru Satchinmaye, Amba Sri Guru Satchinmaye.
Vedamayi, Sudhamayi, Amritanandamayi, Amma Shri Guru Satchinmayi, Amma Shri Guru Satchinmayi.
Jai Ma, Jai Ma, Jai Ma, Jai Ma. Jai Ma, Jai Ma, Jai Ma, Jai Ma. Kripamayi, Amba Karunamayi, Amritanandamayi Ma.
Kripamayi, करुणामयी अमृतानन्दमयी मा
कृपामयी अम्ब करुणामयी अमृतानन्दमयी मा
कृपामयी अम्ब करुणामयी अमृतानन्दमयी
अम्ब अमृतानन्दमयी
अम्ब अमृतानन्दमयी
तेजोमयी ज्योतिर्मयी
अम्ब तेजोमयी ज्योतिर्मयी
अम्ब तेजोमयी ज्योतिर्मयी
अम्ब तेजोमयी ज्योतिर्मयी
प्रेममयी दयामयी अमृतानन्दमयी अम्ब दीनानुकम्पामयी अम्ब दीनानुकम्पामयी
प्रेममयी दयामयी अमृतानन्दमयी अम्ब दीनानुकम्पामयी अम्ब दीनानुकम्पामयी
जय मां जय मां जय मां जय मां
जय मां जय मां जय मां जय मां
जय मां जय मां जय मां जय मां
जय मां जय मां जय मां
अमृतमयी आनंदमयी अमृतानंदमयी जय मां जय मां जय मां जय मां
अमृतमयी आनन्दमयी अमृतानन्दमयी जय मां जय मां जय मां जय मां
वेदमयी सुधामयी अमृतानंदमयी अम्ब श्री गुरु सच्चिन्मयी अम्ब श्री गुरु सच्चिन्मयी
वेदमयी दयामयी अमृतानन्दमयी अम्ब श्री गुरु सच्चिन्मयी अम्ब श्री गुरु सच्चिन्मयी
जय मां जय मां जय मां जय मां
जय मां जय मां जय मां जय मां
कृपामयी अम्ब करुणामयी अमृतानन्दमयी मां
कृपामयी अम्ब करुणामयी अमृतानन्दमयी मां
कृपामयी अम्ब करुणामयी अमृतानन्दमयी मां
कृपामयी अम्ब करुणामयी अमृतानन्दमयी
अम्ब तेजोमयी ज्योतिर्मयी
अम्ब तेजोमयी ज्योतिर्मयी
अम्ब तेजोमयी ज्योतिर्मयी
अम्ब तेजोमयी ज्योतिर्मयी
प्रेममयी दयामयी अमृतानन्दमयी अम्ब दीनानुकम्पामयी अम्ब दीनानुकम्पामयी
प्रेममयी दयामयी अमृतानन्दमयी अम्ब दीनानुकम्पामयी Kammadinanukambamayee.
Jai Ma, Jai Ma, Jai Ma, Jai Ma. Jai Ma, Jai Ma, Jai Ma, Jai Ma. Jai Ma, Jai Ma. Jai Ma, Jai Ma. What's the page number?
Page 204.
204. Volume 1. Volume 1, page 204. Okay. Lambodara Pahima, Jaya Lambodara Pahima,
Jaya Lambodara Pahima,
Jagadamba Sutta Rakshama, Jagadamba Sutta Rakshama,
Jagadamba Sutta Rakshama,
Jaya Lambodara Pahima,
Jaya Lambodara Pahima,
Jagadamba Sutta Rakshama,
Jagadamba Sutta Rakshama,
Jagadamba Sutta Rakshama,
Jagadamba Sutta Rakshama,
Jaya Lambodara Pahima,
Jaya Lambodara Pahima,
Sharanagada Rakshama,
Sharanagata Rakshama,
Sharanagada Rakshama, करुणानिधे पाहि मां
हे करुणानिधे पाहि मां
हे करुणानिधे पाहि मां
हे करुणानिधे पाहि मां
श्री जगन्नाथ संरक्ष मां
श्री जगन्नाथ संरक्ष मां
श्री जगन्नाथ संरक्ष मां
श्री जगन्नाथ संरक्ष मां
निज भक्ति मुदं देहि 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 मां
जय लंबोदर पाहि मां
जय लंबोदर पाहि मां
जय लंबोदर पाहि मां
जय लंबोदर पाहि मां
जगदम्बा सुत रक्ष मां
जगदम्बा सुत रक्ष मां
जय लंबोदर पाहि मां
जय लंबोदर पाहि मां
शरणागत रक्ष मां
शरणागत रक्ष मां
शरणागत रक्ष मां
शरणागत रक्ष मां
हे करुणानिधे पाहि मां
हे करुणानिधे पाहि मां
श्री जगन्नाथ संरक्ष मां
श्री जगन्नाथ संरक्ष मां
निज भक्ति मुदं देहि 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 मां
जय लंबोदर जय लंबोदर जय लंबोदर पाहि मां
जय लंबोदर जय लंबोदर
जय लंबोदर पाहि मां Volume 2, page 49. कृष्णं कलय सखी सुन्दरं बालकृष्णं कलय सखी सुन्दरम् कृष्णं कलय सखी Sundaram.
Balakrishnam kalaya sakhi sundaram.
Balakrishnam kalaya sakhi sundaram. Krishnam kalaya sakhi sundaram. Balakrishnam kalaya sakhi sundaram. Angana mangana Angana mangana Antare madhavo Antare madhavo Madhavam 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 Chantare Nangana Chantare Nangana Iddhama kalpide Iddhama kalpide Mandale madhyagam Mandale madhyagam Sanchidau venuna Sanchidau venuna Devaki nandanam Devaki nandanam Sanchitau venuna Sanchitau venuna Devaki nandanam Krishnam kalaya sakhi sundaram Krishnam kalaya sakhi sundaram Krishnam kalaya sakhi sundaram Sri Krishna Govinda Hare Murare Sri Krishna Govinda Hare Murare He Nath Narayana Vasudeva He Nath Narayana Vasudeva He Nath Narayana Vasudeva Sri Krishna Govinda Hare Murare He Nath Narayana Vasudeva Sri Krishna Govinda Hare Murare He Nath Narayana Vasudeva Sri Krishna Sri Krishna Sri Krishna Sri Krishna Govinda Sri Krishna Govinda Hari Sri Govinda
Govinda, 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 Hari Govinda.
Govinda, 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 Hari Govinda.
Sri Krishna Govinda, Sri Krishna 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 Govinda.
Govinda, 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 Hari Govinda.
Govinda, 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 Hari Govinda.
Sri Krishna Govinda, Sri Krishna 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 Govinda.
Krishnam Kalaya Sakhi Sundaram Bala Krishnam Kalaya Sakhi Sundaram.
Daya karo. So, Daya karo Mata.
दया करो माता अम्बा कृपा करो जननी.
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 कृपा करो माता अम्बा रक्षा 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 करो जननी.
कल्याण रूपिणी काली कपालिनी.
कल्याण रूपिणी काली कपालिनी.
कल्याण रूपिणी काली कपालिनी.
कल्याण रूपिणी काली कपालिनी.
काली कपालिनी.
काली कपालिनी.
काली कपालिनी.
काली कपालिनी.
कल्याण रूपिणी काली कपालिनी.
कल्याण रूपिणी काली कपालिनी.
अमृतेश्वरी अम्ब मां पाहि.
अम्बा अमृतेश्वरी अम्बा मां पाहि.
अम्ब अमृतेश्वरी अम्ब मां पाहि.
अम्बा अमृतेश्वरी अम्बा मां पाहि.
ॐ माता ॐ माता ॐ मादानन्दमयी.
ओ माता ओ माता आनन्दमयी.
ॐ माता ॐ मातानन्दमयी.
माता ओ माता आनन्दमयी.
दया करो माता अम्बा कृपा करो जननी
दया करो माता कृपा करो जननी
दया करो माता अम्बा कृपा करो जननी
दया करो माता कृपा करो जननी
कृपा करो माई
माता माता ओ माता आनंदमयी
ओम माता ओम माता ओम माता आनंदमयी
माता ओ माता आनंदमयी
ओम माता ओम माता ओम माता आनंदमयी
माता ओ माता आनंदमयी
ओम माता ओम माता ओम माता आनंदमयी
माता ओ माता
ओम माता ओम माता ओम माता आनंदमयी ओम माता ओम माता ओम माता आनंदमयी
माता आनंदमयी
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 दया करो माता अम्बा कृपा करो जननी
We'll do the arati now. Leave it, come. Start.
ओम जय 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 जननी वंदे अमृतानंदमयी मंगल आरती माधव भवानी अमृतानंदमयी माता अमृतानंदमयी जन मन निज सुख दायिनी माता अमृतानन्दमयि मङ्गलकारिणि वन्दे जननी अमृतानन्दमयि माता अमृतानन्दमयि सकलागम निगमादिषु चरिते अमृतानन्दमयि निखिलमय जननी वन्दे अमृतानन्दमयि माता अमृतानन्दमयि प्रेम रसामृत वर्षिणी माता अमृतानन्दमयि प्रेम भक्ति संदायिनी माता अमृतानन्दमयि माता अमृतानन्दमयि समगमदायिनी मनलयकारिणी अमृतानन्दमयि सददं मम हृदि वसदा देवी अमृतानन्दमयि माता अमृतानन्दमयि पदिदोधार निरंतर हृदये अमृतानन्दमयि परमहंस पद निलये देवी अमृतानन्दमयि माता अमृतानन्दमयि हे जननी जनि मरण निवारिणि अमृतानन्दमयि हे सृजन परिपालिनि जयदा अमृतानन्दमयि माता अमृतानन्दमयि सुरजन पूजित जय जगदम्बा अमृतानन्दमयि सहज समाधि सुधन्ये देवी अमृतानन्दमयि माता अमृतानन्दमयि माता अमृतानन्दमयि माता अमृतानन्दमयि ॐ जय जय जगज्जननी वन्दे अमृतानन्दमयि मङ्गलहारिणि माधवभवानी अमृतानन्दमयि माता अमृतानन्दमयि माता अमृतानन्दमयि। जय बोलो सद्गुरु माता अमृतानंदमयी देवी की जय। असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्युर्मा अमृतं गमय। ओम शांति शांति शांतिः। ओम लोका समस्ता सुखिनो भवन्तु। लोका समस्ता सुखिनो भवन्तु। लोका समस्ता सुखिनो भवन्तु। Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.
Yes.